The Duke tells her he will decide tomorrow. Not loudly, not dramatically, as if tomorrow were something guaranteed. You may stay, he says, setting his glass down with quiet precision. I will give you my answer in the morning. The words land softly and still manage to hollow her chest. She had expected dismissal, a refusal, even an ultimatum. Not this. Tomorrow. And until then, she asks. He looks at her, not at her face, but at the space she occupies in the room, as if measuring the consequence of her presence. Until then, he replies, you will wait. The fire crackles behind him low and steady. Shadows stretch across the study walls. Tall shelves lined with ledgers and books that speak of permanence rather than pleasure. The house itself feels like it is listening, waiting. She nods once because there is nothing else to do. She does not sleep. Not truly. The guest chamber is warm, immaculate, prepared in advance as though her arrival had been anticipated. Heavy curtains block the moonlight, but she lies awake anyway, staring at the ceiling, counting the hours by the sound of distant clocks and the occasional footstep in the corridor. Tomorrow, the Duke's voice returns to her uninvited, calm, unhurried, unyielding. He did not say what he would decide, only that he would. She turns onto her side, pulse tight in her throat. By dawn, she is already dressed. Breakfast is served precisely at 8. She arrives a minute early. The Duke arrives exactly on time. He takes his seat at the head of the table, posture composed, dark coat immaculate. He acknowledges her presence with a nod, nothing more. No quotums. No distance. Neutrality perfected. You slept, he observes. I rested, she replies. That will have to do. She watches him pour tea unhurried, every movement deliberate. The silence stretches, thick and purposeful. You said you would decide today, she says finally. Yes. And you're not going to tell me now. No. Her fingers tighten around her cup. Why? Because watching you wait tells me more than your answer would, he replies. That sends a chill through her. You're testing me. Yes. And what exactly are you testing for? He meets her gaze evenly. Whether you leave, he says. Her breath catches. If I don't, then you understand restraint, he replies. And consequence. She swallows. And if I do, then my answer will be no. The simplicity of it unsettles her more than any raised voice could have. The day unfolds slowly, painfully. She is not confined. The Duke does not forbid her movement, nor does he assign her a guard. She walks the grounds alone, the vast estate stretching outward in quiet dominance. Iron gates remain closed, not as a threat, but as a statement. This is not a place one exits casually. She stops near the outer wall, resting her hands against cold stone. She could leave. He did not say she could not. The choice is hers. That is the cruelest part. When she returns to the house, the Duke is in the gallery, reviewing correspondence. He does not look up when she enters. You came back, he says. Yes. He marks something on the page. Good. That is all. By afternoon, the waiting becomes unbearable. She finds him in the library, standing near a tall window overlooking the snow-dusted grounds. He does not turn when she speaks. You're enjoying this, she says. No, he replies. I am observing. Is this how you make decisions? She asks. By letting people unravel? I make decisions, he corrects. By watching who remains composed. She steps closer. You could have said no last night. Yes. But you didn't. No. Why? He turns then slowly, fully. Because you didn't ask impulsively, he says. You came prepared to accept refusal. Her jaw tightens. And you decided to punish me for it. No, he says calmly. I decided to see if your resolve survives uncertainty. That's cruel. That's honest. She studies him, searching for arrogance. Finds none. Only discipline. By evening, the servants treat her differently. Not with deference but with expectation. Dinner is served as though she will attend. Her place set. Wine poured without question. The Duke sits across from her this time. You're still here, he says. Yes. You haven't packed. No. Why? She exhales slowly. Because leaving now would feel like failing a test I never agreed to take. He considers that. And yet you're still taking it. Yes. Something like approval flickers behind his eyes. Night falls. Still no decision. They stand together near the fire, the space between them carefully measured. You could end this, she says quietly. Yes. Why don't you? He looks at her then, truly looks. Because waiting reveals desire more clearly than action, he says. Her pulse stutters. You're assuming I want this. No, he replies. I'm observing whether you choose it. Silence stretches. You're not afraid, he continues. You're impatient. She laughs softly without humor. Is that supposed to be flattering? No, he says. It's informative. She returns to her chamber later, heart tight, thoughts restless. Tomorrow. Again. But this time the word feels heavier. Because she realizes something she has been avoiding all day. She is no longer waiting for his decision. She is waiting to see whether she will leave. And she already knows the answer. When dawn comes, it finds her awake. Waiting. And somewhere in the house, the Duke is awake too. Watching. Because the moment she stays when she could have gone is the moment his decision will already have been made. Morning does not arrive with ceremony. It arrives with certainty. She knows this before she opens her eyes, before the sound of footsteps in the corridor, before the faint knock at her door. The waiting has changed shape. It is no longer hollow. It is full. She dresses carefully, not because she expects an audience, but because she understands now that presentation is part of the decision. Not for him. For herself. When she enters the breakfast room, the Duke is already there. Standing. Not seated at the table. Not reading. Simply waiting. That alone tightens her chest. You didn't sleep, she says. I rested, he replies. She almost smiles. He has taken her words from the day before and returned them unchanged. You said you would decide today, she says. Yes. And you still haven't. No. She steps closer, stopping a measured distance away. Why am I still here? She asks quietly. He studies her. Not her posture, not her clothes, but her eyes. Because you chose to be, he says. That wasn't the question. It was the only one that mattered. Silence stretches. You could have left at any point, he continues. You were never restrained. I know. You weren't threatened. I know. You weren't promised anything. She nods once. I know. He inclines his head slightly. Then you understand, he says, why the waiting was necessary. She exhales. You wanted to know if I would stay without being held. Yes. And if I hadn't, then you would not be standing here, he says evenly. And I would not regret it. The honesty lands heavier than cruelty ever could. They walk the grounds together for the first time. Not escorted. Not led. Beside one another. The iron gates remain closed, but they no longer feel symbolic. They are simply part of the estate. Present, unremarkable, unquestioned. You've been measuring me, she says as they move along the stone path. Yes. And what have you learned? That you do not confuse patience with submission, he replies. And that when left alone with a choice, you do not flee from discomfort. She stops walking. That doesn't sound like praise. It isn't, he says. It's compatibility. Her pulse stutters at the word. You still haven't said what you're deciding, she says. He turns to face her fully. I am deciding whether to involve you, he says, or to dismiss you. Involve me in what? My life, he replies. The simplicity of it steals her breath. That's enormous, she says. Yes. And you made me wait to see if I would want it badly enough to endure uncertainty. No, he corrects. I made you wait to see if you would want it without certainty. She searches his face. And now, she asks. Now, he says. I will tell you what tomorrow was always meant to be. They return to the house. To the study. The same room where the fire burns low and the walls listen. He does not ask her to sit. He does not sit himself. You did not come here seeking advancement, he says. You did not arrive with expectation. No, she agrees. You did not attempt to persuade me, he continues. You did not bargain. No. You waited, he says. Even when it was uncomfortable. Even when leaving would have preserved your pride. She swallows. Yes. That, he says quietly, is what I was deciding. She folds her arms tightly. And I will not send you away, he says. Relief flickers quick, unguarded, before she can stop it. But he is not finished. I will also not bind you without clarity, he continues. So listen carefully. She nods. If you remain here, he says, it will not be temporary. I do not allow proximity without consequence. Her chest tightens. You will be seen, he continues. Your presence will be noted. Assumptions will be made. I'm aware. You will be defended without being hidden, he says, and corrected without being diminished. She meets his gaze. And you? He does not hesitate. I will not pretend indifference, he says, and I will not withdraw once acknowledged. The weight of that settles deep. And if I choose to leave, she asks, then you will leave freely, he replies. With no attempt at persuasion. She believes him. That somehow makes staying heavier. She asks for time. He grants it without comment. She spends the afternoon alone, walking familiar paths that already feel altered. Not because the place has changed, but because she has. The waiting is over. Now comes choice. When she returns at dusk, the Duke is exactly where she expects him to be. Waiting. I'm staying, she says. He inclines his head once. I know. That irritates her. You're very confident. No, he says. I'm observant. She steps closer. You never asked why. He meets her gaze. Tell me. Because you didn't chase, she says. You didn't corner me with promises. You didn't force urgency. Yes. You made me sit with my own decision, she continues. And I realized something I didn't expect. And that is, I don't want to be chosen in a moment, she says. I want to be chosen deliberately. The silence that follows is deep and still. Then he speaks. Then you will be, he says. The days that follow confirm it. Her presence is acknowledged without spectacle, introduced without explanation, accepted without question. The Duke does not hover. He does not test her again. He does not need to. One evening, as they stand together in the gallery, she says quietly, you could have decided the first night. Yes. And saved us both the tension. Yes. Why didn't you? He looks at her then, not assessing, not distant. Present. Because the moment you stayed when nothing held you, he says, was the moment the decision stopped being mine alone. She exhales, something easing in her chest. And tomorrow, she asks. He allows the faintest smile. There will be no more waiting, he says. Only intention. She nods. That is enough. Later, alone in her chamber, she realizes something quietly profound. The Duke did not delay his answer because he was uncertain. He delayed it because he wanted to see whether she could live inside uncertainty without losing herself. And she did. She stayed. Not because she was told to. Not because she was afraid to leave. But because when the waiting ended, she was already where she had chosen to be.